In preparation for our upcoming electoral synod on September the 17th, the Nominations Committee has invited nominees to respond to 3 questions. The first 2 questions were given to the nominees 10 minutes prior to this recording. The third and final question is a surprise to the nominee. Each nominee will have 2 minutes per question for a total of 6 minutes. Now let's meet the nominee. Proclaiming the good news of Jesus' resurrection is at the very core of the Christian faith. Describe for us a moment in your life when you felt the power and presence of God, and share with us how you will inspire the people of the Diocese of Toronto to share the transformative message of God's good news.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I believe Jesus is good news, and Jesus is good news for every person in every situation. And a time when I got to witness that had a powerful impact on myself personally was when I was serving in London, England, in an inner city parish. And it had very poor neighborhood, very few resources. I started a mums and tots group for women on the local council estates who had very difficult lives, very complex lives. And we began reading the Bible together. And one of these women, we'll call her Michelle, had a very difficult, complicated life. And as we read the Bible together, she began to hear, for the very first time in her life, that somebody actually loved her, regardless of the mistakes that she'd made in her life. And I remember her asking me, Jenny, is this really true? Whatever I've done, God will forgive me? I said, absolutely, Michelle. And what was amazing for me was the first time she actually believed me, and it began to change her life. And seeing the grace of God melt and soften her heart and free her from that anxiety was really transformative. If I were to serve as a suffragan bishop in this diocese, I would want to find creative ways, new and winsome ways for us to share the grace of God with local communities, in our city, in our parishes, in our neighborhoods, because the world so desperately needs to hear that message of God's reconciling love and grace. And the world needs to hear what we have to give. So I would be keen to work with laity and clergy to look at new ways of thinking, new models as a way of sharing that wonderful message of good news.
Why are you interested in being the bishop suffragan? How would your gifts complement the ministry that exists in Toronto and at the national level?
I'm interested in entering into this period of discernment with the Diocese of Toronto, and I see the role of a suffragan bishop primarily in 3 areas that comes from the ordinal. The first is the bishop as the guardian of faith and unity. And I have a deep appreciation for the global Anglican communion and the Catholicity of the Church. I've served in the Church of England, the Church in Japan, I've lived in Pakistan and India, and I've seen the breadth and the beauty that is held in the diversity of the Anglican communion. And I think I'd be able to show that appreciation for people across the liturgical and theological spectrum. And I think the unity of our diocese is at a critical time, and that is a powerful evangelistic tool to our world today. So I think I would bring that appreciation for that faith and unity. Second is the bishop as the proclaimer of the gospel, the proclaimer of Christ's resurrection. And I'm passionate about the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's changed my own life. And if I were to serve as a suffragan bishop, I would look for ways to build bridges into local communities of all faiths and none. And I would be a strong advocate for the poor and those on the margins of society so that the hope of the gospel could be known and experienced by everyone. Thirdly, a suffragan bishop is meant to serve as a faithful pastor, encouraging and equipping churches towards renewal and growth, following where God is leading. And I have a wide variety of experiences in all kinds of churches, rural, inner city, suburban, urban, across the theological and liturgical spectrum. And I have firsthand experience of seeing how to work collaboratively with teams of laity and clergy to renew God's church. And I believe the local church is the hope of the world. So I'm incredibly hopeful about the future of the Diocese of Toronto, and it'd be a privilege to serve in this season as a suffragan bishop. Thank you.
If you could reimagine church in the Diocese of Toronto, what would it look like, and what would you do to make it happen?
Well, to start with, we have a wonderful diversity of churches in our diocese. And to state the obvious, we're in a time of great transition and change in society and in our diocese. To quote Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, Toto, I don't believe we're in Kansas anymore. So we obviously need to look at new models and new ways of reimagining church. But much of what we already do in the Diocese of Toronto is healthy and vibrant. And we need to name that and celebrate that and strengthen that and learn from where ministries are flourishing and what can we reapply in different areas of the diocese. So we need to strengthen what is existing and is already flourishing. That being said, while we're rooted in the historic creeds, we can take that deep rootedness to try new things in new places. What does it mean for us to minister at different times of the week with different cultural groups that we've never tried before? What does it mean to try and plant new churches physically and through networks around our diocese? What does it mean to reimagine our models of chaplaincy? If I were to serve as a suffragan bishop, I would want to learn from other parts of the communion where things are flourishing well. I'd also want to look at what we've done here in the diocese that maybe hasn't flourished and what can we learn from that. And I'd also want to speak to people who are currently not connecting with our churches and ask them, what would church need to look like to resonate for you? So I think that there's a marvelous array of things that we can try, experiment, and innovate. They won't all flourish at once, but we can learn from that to try some new things. I would also want to lead by example. What would it mean for me as a bishop to put myself out there in communities that have not previously connected with the Anglican Church and to listen to them, to learn from them, and be willing to come alongside laity and clergy in trying some of those new things outside of my own personal comfort zone if I was to serve in that role. So once again, I feel incredibly hopeful about the possibilities in front of us. Thank you.